As a young teacher, Ramsey Musallum wrestled with the common dilemma of homework.
I feel like I always got frustrated in the fact that I would ask my students to do this important work for home. I would teach them this important information, and we'd chew on it a little bit in class, and then I'd send them off, and I need them to assimilate those concepts at home. But then I'd come back to school, and because of all the stress on their life to get into college, they would rather just cheat their way through the homework just to get through it. Ideally, the idea of homework not existing, I think a lot of people are really behind that movement, but I think the reality is, with how complex the world is, there's a lot that we can do with that space with students. So I started thinking about how can I use that space differently.
And so, his personal journey into flipping instruction began.
Flip teaching. Anybody that's never heard of it?
What I think I know is that flip teaching is students going online to take a lesson.
I just understood it was the instruction is done at home via some kind of technology, and then the children come to school the next day and apply the learning.
The first I heard of it was today, speaking with my colleagues.
Flip teaching is the newest buzzword in education, with online webinars, blogs, and websites popping up everywhere.
Before we start, I do want to show you the site because I don't have time to talk about everything today. I want you to feel safe and know that I'm really doing my homework with this stuff, and there's a lot of stuff there for you, so you don't have to write everything down. And the website is flipteaching.com, and here's what it looks like. Okay. The big button are the tools and tutorials button to look at. So there's a lot of tools that allow you to do inking or writing. Traditionally, in education, the classroom would be for instruction. So we view ourselves as teachers, and the homework would be for practice. Right? And the flipped classroom says, let's reverse that. Right? Let's make the classroom space where all the practice and assimilation happens, in the homework space for the instruction. My doctoral research at USF had to do with something called cognitive load theory, and I got into both of the research and the technology kind of simultaneously. In my research, I really got into how to create learning environments. At the same time, in my own classroom, we got smart boards into our school, and I started recording my lessons live during class. Let's go. All right, so I click record. All right, guys, so great job in your lab today. Most of you guys thought about these two concepts, mass and volume. But what we haven't talked about is that if you divide mass over volume, you get this new thing called density. So there's the video. It's now public online. I get the embed code. Boom, done. Embed the Google form right below the video. They give me a summary of it, and we have a rubric for that, and they're done.
What do you think?
I thought it was brilliant how he had them, after watching the video, write down a response to him.
I really like the idea of being available to be the tutor, the guide. I wonder about the accountability of whether the students will have actually done the lesson at home.
It was clear to me that he very much knew what he was doing, and I wonder if that translates to the students. I guess maybe the assumption is kids get this stuff sort of intuitively already, but I don't know that that's the case.
You'd be surprised. The digital divide is a lot lower than digital immigrants, like people born, pre-1975, are going to think. So the idea of the internet is branded in their head. So asking students to do things on the internet isn't necessarily like asking them, if they don't have internet access, to do this crazy thing.
I like how students can re-watch it. So if we're constantly having to move on to the next thing, but if students miss it, they can go back and stop it or pause it or replay, and that's helpful for those people who need to hear it twice or even 3 times. We can't do that in class.
The one thing I do want to say, though, is that there is kind of a diminishing marginal utility factor with this. If students are watching 2 to 3 videos a week, they can get burnt on that process. The process can just get old for them.
Also the parent piece. I think I could potentially hear parents saying, you're putting this on my shoulders, that now I have to make sure my child sits down and does their homework when it's the teaching part of it, and that's your job, not mine at home, kind of thing.
To be the devil's advocate on this one, I wonder if it's the case where teachers are going to render themselves irrelevant by making a really great set of lectures.
I would say look at a chapter and just make a list of all the things that are happening in class that you would categorize as passive transfer of information from one person to the other person. And I would say that these are the things that I want to make my instructional screencast about. Because the goal is to do all the other things that require more assimilation of information. For example, practicing, working collaboratively, critically thinking about literature or an article, all those kinds of things. That's what you want to do in class. In this 21st century, that's really the teacher's role, because all that information they can get outside the class. They don't need us for that anymore.
And then, of course, the technology. Do the kids have access to what they need at home to actually view and listen to these lessons and respond?
Right, that's a big problem.
If you develop a plan with each kid as to how they're going to do it, what if a kid can't afford a book? What if a kid doesn't have a place to read at home? The only place where there's an equal playing field is the classroom. It's tricky, so that's why we are saying that everything that's low on Bloom's taxonomy should be done outside of the classroom. Because if the only equal playing field is the classroom, then I want the hardest stuff to happen there. And the hardest stuff is the assimilation of knowledge. So my response would be, okay, so I'm going to send them home and ask them to do some really difficult things without even knowing if it's going to happen, and those things being the most crucial things they do all year long. Like, I want my students to critically think. In the old paradigm of teaching, we used to ask students to critically think outside of the classroom in their homework assignments. And I don't know what their life is outside of that situation. So I want that to happen in the classroom, and whatever I can do to have that happen is more socially just than they may or may not have internet access to watch a 5-minute video. And what I would say is, okay, so what? They can't watch it. All they're getting is low-level learning in that setting anyway. Like, a lot of times I just say, okay, meet me here 5 minutes, I'll teach it to you real quick.
I continue to do what I think I do well and work around technology. So I need time to become comfortable with the technology. So I try it, I would try it, but I worry about finding the time to slow down and try to teach differently.
And so, our merry band of digital immigrants set out to do what they do best: retool, reinvent, and rebuild a new skill set for the 21st century.
What we as a group are supposed to be doing is figuring out how we can use recording software. So this is flipteaching.com, the homepage.
This is the flip process.
Click here for an example.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like it.
Does it tell you what it, more
Subtle.
history?
Capture. There we go.
Let's see what we got.
Hey!
Take you to my website. Well, that's because we can gene it.
Sometimes kids need more time to process.
Right.
So here we are with our link to our Gene video.
Hey!
I would feel more confident that I could do it if I went through the process myself. Watching is helpful, but I would have to struggle.
I think that I've been teaching long enough, for so long, that I really value what works, and I need to probably stretch myself more, because we're in the business of change. We're sort of agents of change, and I think I'm probably reluctant to experience and experiment with some of this stuff. So I think that's I'm guessing. To me, I know it feels like it's my own personal issue, but I suspect it's not. I'm not the only teacher who will feel this way. But I'm not discounting it. I can see great things are right on the horizon, but it's almost like I don't even know which questions to ask. It's an odd feeling.
I would want to practice doing it. I would want to maybe have a couple of
All of us.
laptops that we could use, and let's play with it one day. When I was first watching the model lessons and being introduced to the Flip Teaching website, there's a lot of links on there, and we actually had the ability to play around while we were learning about it. We all had a device in front of us, whether it was an iPad or a laptop. And so while I was learning about it, I was able to click on some of the things like Jing and kind of try it out. And then since that first introduction, when I've been on my own and just playing around and seeing, okay, what can I do?
a lot of those resources have been very helpful. Actually listening to Ramsey present and going to his workshop was even more helpful. Watching him in action can be overwhelming. He seems to do all of these things so quickly and so easily, and it's a little bit mind-blowing when you watch him, because he's been doing it for a while. And I thought to myself, I don't know that that's me, but it actually turned out to be a lot more simple than it appeared at first. It does come together fairly easily. I know every teacher wants to be able to save time. We spend so much time already with lesson planning and grading. You don't want another thing on your plate. And what's been nice is being able to do little steps here, just small lessons. It's very clear that his philosophy is to approach instruction in the best way for the learning of the students. And flipped teaching is a tool to do that. And the fact that it employs technology, it just happens to be, you know, that we live in an age where we can do all these things. We can make little videos. And so that works. But it's not about that. The technology and the video cast and all that are not paramount. What's paramount is maximizing the instructional time so when the students are with you, that you can do the most good.